Welcome to Trillium Wealth's Plain Talk. I'm Steve Laska, and I'm here as usual with my partner, Matt Gamal. Matt, you have a special guest for us today. We said last week we were going to talk about real estate and all things that tie to real estate, and you went out and you have a friend and found an expert to come on and talk to us today. So why don't you introduce our friend?
Yeah, so thanks, Steve. The real estate topic has been coming up, asked for by some of our clients. And so I have asked Gretchen Coley, who's the founder of Coley Group Real Estate here in Raleigh, North Carolina, luxury real estate firm. And she's been fantastic, a friend and also my personal realtor. So trust her a lot and wanted to get her insights on what we're seeing in the market. So there's a lot of news floating out there. Real estate has been tough for a little while. Mortgage rates are high, prices are higher. And so people are just wondering what's going on. So kind of wanted to start, Gretchen, first of all, just get your thoughts on what you're seeing in the real estate market as you talk to people on your team and around the country.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I love everything about real estate and talking about real estate. And so, this is a topic that our clients are asking us too. And, what we're seeing in the market right now is there are obstacles in the way, right? There's a lot of them. There's affordability issues. There's consumer confidence. There's interest rates. There's all kinds of things that are playing in the background when people are thinking about real estate, whether for an investment or for their personal home. And it's a rocky market. Like, inventory is low, transactions are low, people aren't moving. People are sitting tight. And then there's the whole consumer confidence issue, which I think plays into this a lot more than anyone talks about, right? Like, people talk about affordability, they talk about interest rates, but consumer confidence, and does somebody really feel like they have an aspiration that they can grow to? Does somebody feel like they're going to have a job in 6 months? So I feel like we're fighting a lot of battles, and overall the market, where we are in Raleigh, has been flat for the most part. Over in the ultra luxury, over $3 million and up, we're seeing that side of the market continue to roll on. But everywhere else, we're just not seeing the transactions that we've seen in the past.
Gretchen, is that typical though? Like, I'm sorry, Matt, is that typical? Like, you talked about the top end of the market, and we talk about that a lot too. Like, when people have that wealth and they're going to buy $3, $4, $5, $6 million house, they're not, the economy doesn't mean that much to them. They're pretty successful, and that's not a big change. So has that been your whole career? Like, that's the market that kind of continues to go as it goes, and there's a certain level. Is it $1 million? Is it $500,000 where things just start to tighten up and go through different cycles?
It is. I mean, I think that's well said. It hasn't always been the way though, because what we are seeing, especially in the North Carolina market, is a massive wealth transfer and a massive wealth creation. And you guys are dealing with this all the time. And so the effects at the top end of the market, and I would say ultra luxury for us in Raleigh is $3 million and above. And so that's kind of where I say that market does not have the same factors. Those people have true generational wealth sometimes, or new wealth that has been created in this diverse economy that we've had over the last 10 to 15 years. And that money is still flowing there. They are still buying their dream house. They are buying a second home. They're buying a third home. They're buying houses for their children. And so we typically do see that, but it hasn't always been that way. Not in Raleigh. Like, it used to be in Raleigh, a $3 million house was like really, really, really expensive. And now in Raleigh, in this zip code, that my office is in here in North Hills, $3 million is the entry point.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that you mentioned consumer confidence, because that wasn't, honestly, it's on my radar for a lot of other things in the economy, and it wasn't on my radar for housing, right? I'm focused on what are prices, our prices coming down. Is that what's going to take to get more activity, mortgage rates, get more inventory of building, get people moving? Like, all these things are sticking points. But you're totally right. There's a lot of, it's been in the news, the K-shaped economy of the wealthy are doing really well and don't have as many concerns, and the bottom probably 75% of America has more concerns. Yes, they're still spending on everyday items, so we're not going to see it show up at Walmart and Costco and Amazon. Like, their earnings are fine, but yeah, you're not going to necessarily go buy a new house and take on a big monthly payment if you're worried about your
Yeah.
job, if you're worried about
Well,
making your budget stretch.
I agree 100%, Matt. You nailed it. And the consumer confidence piece of this is what nobody is talking about. And it's what everybody is thinking about, though, because when you're not confident in your income, your wife's income, and we're seeing so many dual income families now, when you're not confident that your job is going to be there and you're reading all the headlines, right? People watch the national news. They watch the local news, but for some reason, when we talk real estate, the national news is what takes precedence, right? And they're hearing all the grim headlines. Amazon laying off 14,000 people. AI is taking over your world. The political climate is crazy. Are there tariffs? Are there not tariffs? Is ICE deporting all of the people who are building our houses? You start to think about all of those things, and they all weigh on the consumer, because at the end of the day, the consumer's perception is their reality, and they make their decisions based on that. And that is really what we are seeing in housing. And everybody has always said, and the economists say, okay, when we get rates down below 6 consistently, that's going to turn the market back on. And I firmly believe that. However, in October, we saw rates in the 6s. We saw FHA, VA, USDA, conventional, all of those were in the 6s. And excuse me, they were all in the 5s. And we didn't hear that. We didn't see that turn back on, right? We didn't see all of a sudden, instead of sellers selling their houses, they were taking their houses off the market, which is adding on to that, is adding on to the inventory issue that we're having. And I firmly believe it is a consumer confidence thing, because if rates getting into the 5s were what was going to move the needle did not move. So there is another problem. And I think it's just the chaos that we're living in, and this certainty, uncertainty. And you got to think, we're in a time of our lives where, as adults, AI is changing the entire landscape. And look at how fast AI has changed it. I mean, you're probably using it every day in your work life, in your home life. Your kids are using it. And I think people truly believe that some of their jobs are going to be eradicated from it, instead of believing, just like the Industrial Revolution and the tech boom, that this is going to be a job creation in a different way. We're going to have to learn new skills. We're going to have to, really sharpen our pencils and figure out, how can we go pivot in a role that might be taken over by AI, and pivot into something different, and learn to use the technology. And I think that underlying thing is what is keeping people on the sidelines and causing them to stay put, among many other things, but it's the thing that nobody's talking about.
I think it's all confidence, guys. And I'm the oldest person on the call, and I'll give you some context to this. I had this conversation with Matt before. The first 3 homes that I owned, the mortgage rates were 8.5%, and we didn't blink at them. And years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago, I had this conversation with Matt, and I said, "What would you do if mortgage rates were 5.5?" And he looked at me and laughed. He goes, "Rent." Right? And it's just attitudinally, if you're used to things being a certain way, that's when you turn around and go, like, I don't have confidence in what's happening. The cost is too much. I mean, I live in a zip code right now where it's hard to find a home under $1 million, even little homes, right? And the other thing that's happened attitudinally in the real estate market is everybody got really used to, whenever I want to buy another home, it's easy. I sell my first home, it takes me 2 or 3 weeks, and then I go buy another one. Well, now I'm starting to see around this area where we had inventory problems forever, and houses again are ranging from $1.5 million to $20 million. They used to sell overnight. Now it's 5 or 6 months. Now, again, guys, I'm old enough to remember when that was normal. Like, normally when you wanted to sell your house, you'd be like, okay, I'll sell it. I'll list it somewhere between 3 and 6 months. That used to be a good number, 3 to 6 months to sell your home. But we've gotten used to it being 30 days. And so everything, I've seen people pull off. And I did it myself. I was going to buy another house,
Wow.
and it was contingent on, I'm going to sell this one and I'll buy that one. And I just started looking, and my wife and I were like, yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on. It didn't sell in 2 days, right? And so we're just like, I'm not going to discount. I'm not going to do any of that, because in my own brain, I was like, the buyers are shrinking because of all the things you guys said. I think it's less to do. I think if everybody had confidence, and
Mm-hmm.
if it was like, if 6%, 5 to 6% became normal in mortgage rates over the next couple of years, they would sell again faster. I think it really is right now the real, for me, Gretchen, I think it's driven by all the other things you said about, I'm not sure what my job's going to be. Because again, the 90s were absolutely roaring. 8.5%
Roaring.
mortgages, houses were selling, we were buying them, and it was like, nobody thought about it. You just everybody bought bigger and bigger homes all the time. They started buying homes that were too big for them, right? At 8.5%, they were like, doesn't matter. I'll buy a house 1,000 square feet bigger than I need it. And it was all about confidence in the economy.
It was. I think that's a great point, because, at the end of the day, again, what people perceive to be is their reality. And what we had happen to us during COVID was we had a really bad thing happen in the market. Terrible thing. And in order to combat that terrible thing, the interest rates went down. And so the only reason we had a 2% rate or a 3% rate was because the economy was in the toilet. That is not a healthy economy. And so we've now conditioned this generation that went through that and bought through that, that's normal. And that's probably never going to happen again in our lifetime, ever. It might not happen in our children's lifetime. The last time we had something like COVID was, 100 years ago. So who knows?
Yeah, we have kind of all the things we're talking about are a cognitive bias of anchoring. And we run into this all the time in wealth management, of people getting stuck and fixated on this thing. And some of those things we're talking about, mortgage rates were just 3%. I'm just going to wait. No, you're not. You're going to wait 25 years to get a 3% mortgage. And it's going to come during a terrible recession or a pandemic. Like, it's going to be a really bad time if a mortgage rate is 3% again. And we also have that anchoring of, gosh, I looked at that house. Houses in this area used to be 400,000. Now they're 8. I don't want to buy. It's not the right time, because Zillow's telling us what everything's worth, and people have been on it since 2020. And I know I've seen you talk about getting Zillowed, Gretchen.
Yeah.
And it is we have all these data points that aren't doing us any favors. So add those bad behavioral and cognitive biases that people are bringing into today, along with consumer confidence being not good, and we're in a problem for the market.
You are dead on, Matt. And here's what you're so good at. You are so good at breaking down really complicated information and clarifying it for your clients. That is a gift that you have. You can bring it down to the simple, stupid, so that anyone can look at it and clearly make a decision. I've seen you do it. And here's the real facts, at least in my market in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I believe this in North Carolina as a whole. Prices are not going down. This market is not becoming more unattractive tomorrow than it is today, right? It's becoming more attractive. Now, are prices stabilizing? Yes. And rates aren't going to 3. So if you truly believe those two things, prices are not coming down and rates are not going to 3, then why do you want to live in the same house that you've lived in for 5 years that you're not happy in because you have a 3% rate? And that is the issue that we fight, is this lock-in problem. And it is a real thing. Millions of existing homeowners are locked into 2 and 3% mortgages, and some of them 4s. And they're trading that for something, they're asked to trade that for something in the 6s, which feels instinctively like it's a terrible deal. So a lot of the people who would normally move, they're just not moving. They're pulling their house off the market, and they're going, this is terrible. And that's really what we're seeing. Is it's the slowest housing activity in the last 4 decades. And it's not because the system is collapsing. It's because the would-be sellers are parked on the sidelines because they don't know what to do, and they're not getting good advice. And you hit the nail on the head with this information overload that everyone has at their fingertips. Yes, you have it at your fingertips, but you know what ChatGPT does not have is emotional intelligence. It cannot help guide and advise on a strategy that's going to fit your goals, dreams, and desires. It doesn't have the EQ. And why you both are probably very successful in your business is because you have the IQ and you have the EQ to take complex problems and break them down into very simple things that people can see clearly.
Yeah, what do they say about like a different, but an analogous to this? Like the people, like doctors hate WebMD. They're like, it tells everybody they have cancer. Like everybody's self-diagnosing. They're coming in. They're like, I got cancer. I was on WebMD. It's like, no, you have a cold. You're going to be okay, right? So,
Mhm. You're not dying.
yeah.
So there's a couple of things that we've been hoping for of changing. Rates, like you said, they've come down a little bit, but it still hasn't spurred a lot of activity. Just in the news this week, 50-year mortgages. Yes, it could make a home slightly more affordable. I was actually talking to Steve yesterday about it. I don't hate it as a tool, right? I think more tools available to a consumer better, but you got to be well informed because the total interest cost is through the roof on those things. But still, like there are things being done. The government's trying to do things to, they can't necessarily fix consumer confidence totally, but they can try to bring interest rates down. They can try to, readjust what your amortization is, so it costs a little bit less in monthly payment. But what do you see as actually having an impact in driving behavior, and saying, like, is there anything the government can do with regulation, with anything to make things a little easier on home buyers?
They can stop creating chaos. That's what they can do. That's the easy answer.
Yeah.
Like, give us a break for a little bit, right? And here's the thing: whether you like the administration or not, Trump is dead set on lower interest rates, and I believe he's going to get them. And so I feel like rates are shifting lower. I feel like we're going to see that as we go into the end of the year, as we go into the midterm cycle next year. I feel like spring is going to be a great season for us. In regards to 50-year mortgages, I'm like you, Matt. I don't hate the idea. I don't hate it as a tool because we got to get creative sometimes. And right now, I think that the stat came out a couple months ago by NAR, the National Association of Realtors, that said that the average age of a first-time home buyer is 38 years old. Can you believe that? Like, imagine the equity and the wealth that you can create. I bought my first condo at 22 years old. From the age of 22 to 38, you might be able to make $250,000, $500,000 tax free. How long would it take you as a renter paying taxes to save that much money, right? It would, you might not ever be able to do it in that time period. So as an investment vehicle, houses are a real thing, and a 50-year mortgage is a tool in the toolbox. Now, the pros to them are obviously longer term, so you can get a lower payment that might be a little bit more palatable for a generation that is young, and it could make sense to them in their budgets. And it could be great for a very specific group of people, say high income households who plan to hold on to their home for a shorter period of time. So if you know you're going to buy this home in a college town that your son is in, and you want to finance it for 50 years because you want to keep the payment as low as possible, that could make sense, knowing you're not going to pay that over time. The cons are really what I'm afraid of, is that you're paying so much interest on that, and it doesn't make the house the investment vehicle that it once was. You hit the nail on the head there. Stretching it over 50 years can also mean you're paying a mortgage in your retirement, which also doesn't align. And granted, most people don't stay in a house for 50 years. We're not the last generation, but I don't think it's going to solve the fix of the underlying shortage of houses. I don't care what kind of mortgage you can get. If there's no houses available, if people aren't moving, it's not going to free the system up at all. So, and for me, I don't really know that it's a sign of stress in the market. I think it's a political strategy by policymakers to try to give people creative tools, because we do have an affordability issue in a lot of
I have a
places.
different, I have a stronger take on this. And part of it is that, so I have, I have said plenty of good things about President Trump and plenty of bad things. I think one of the bad things is, if you just say really nice things to him, you can do what you want. And there's a huge conflict of interest with Bill Pulte giving that advice. His family owns one of the largest home builders in the country, and he's got the platform to go, well, let's do a 50-year mortgage. Well, here's what I know, right? So again, age sometimes can bring us wisdom. In 2008, when we had 0% mortgages, it's what crushed the housing market at that point, right? And I have friends of mine in the mortgage business, and
Mhm.
when they saw it coming and it came, I was like, well, why didn't you see this coming? Like, I didn't see this coming, Steve. This was crazy. And they had these mortgages where people were paying almost nothing. It was being lopped on the other side. A 50-year mortgage, one of the problems with it is you kind of, it's like a drug. You're not putting any equity into your house. You're not
Mm,
accomplishing what you said, Gretchen. And then if the
mhm.
market turns, you're in trouble. What I
You're
really
really
expect out of out of advisors that are advising the president is be more creative. Like these things there's been adjustable rate mortgages forever. So come up with a different calculation on that. Instead of a 2 and 5, it can be a 5 and 15. Like there's other
Mhm.
ways to get there without doing what you just, I agree with you. It's just pandering to voters to be like, hey, I got a 50-year mortgage. So now you can get in this house. Like I'm 58 years old. I said to Matt, I'm like, I've had 10 mortgages already. None of them ever go to 30. So that's
Mhm.
fine. But I think it's a setup. And I think it's one that is, I don't think it's thoughtful for the consumer. I hate to say it, but I think it's thoughtful for Bill Pulte's family, right? To just
I
go, I'm going to
agree.
put this out there so we can sell a lot more homes and my family can get richer.
I agree 100%. To your point, I feel like this could something like this, if it caught on, it could collapse the market for exactly the reasons that you just said. Because when people go to sell, they have no equity and they can't bring money to closing. I mean, a lot of people who would be doing this, they're not financially savvy, right? They don't have an understanding of financial literacy that can help them, and they're getting bad advice. And so when they go to sell those houses, all of a sudden short sales are back, foreclosures are back because nobody has any equity in it. So they can just walk away. They don't have anything to lose. Their credit will be, if they pay all their bills on time, 2 years later, they can buy another house. And I think for that reason, it is definitely not a great idea. I just don't know how much something like that would catch on.
I'd like to see some creative people do what I said and say, like, just create mortgages when the context, just create different terms, right? Create different. You guys talk about the affordability. Like Matt is friends with my oldest son, and he's a healthcare consultant. His wife is a pediatrician, a Harvard fellow. They can't afford to buy a house, and it's $4,500 a month to rent. Right. So not only to your point earlier, like how can you save? It's like, well, I can't save because they have to be in Boston because that's where they are. So the place they rent, they couldn't afford to buy, couldn't get a mortgage on it. So it's just pure rent, nothing's going there. I think that really smart people, like I'm kind of a small government guy. If government wants to solve problems and get really smart people in the room that says, okay, how do we do this? We can't do affordability by telling you, Gretchen, you can't sell your house for that much. What you can do is probably put rules in place that are elegant in their terms without hurting them instead of just well, let's do a 100-year mortgage then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a 200-year mortgage. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so what you're at that point is basically an interest only loan. That's
Mm-hmm.
basically what you're doing there. And we know that those don't never work.
It's basically an auto loan,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
You're not going to have the same level of appreciation, and you can really get caught.
Last topical subject here. So we try to keep it pretty much down the middle here and be respectful on both sides. The recent election in New York has produced a lot of funny results of people freaking out on either side, which is really entertaining online. But there is talk of, is it going to have an impact on the city? Are people are going to move out who have the wealth to move out, and are other people are going to be left behind and stuck with a system that doesn't work? So a little bit on that, but more generally on trends of moving to more affordable areas, better areas for taxation, right? Certain places with no income tax or anything. What have you seen over, the last 10 years of shifts where people say, yeah, that's actually desirable. It's more affordable down in North
Mhm.
Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. It's favorable. So I'm just going to move there. Kind of wrap that in together for me.
Well, first and foremost, there's a lot of questions in there. First and foremost, I think all the news is overblown. New Yorkers who are New Yorkers love New York. They're not
Yes,
going anywhere.
totally.
And good luck to him keeping the promises that he's made. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know how a mayor thinks that they're going to do all of those things, but let's just see what he has. And I think that's what a lot of you New Yorkers are thinking. And I've got great friends who are in real estate there, who are developers, attorneys, and they say it's overblown as well. I think when it comes down to policy swings, you see this happen every time somebody gets elected, right? People are like, oh my gosh, if that happens, I'm moving to Mexico or I'm going to Canada or whatever. And sometimes they do, but I think there are larger reasons for that. Like you just said, the political climate is one thing, affordability is another thing, lifestyle is another thing, way of life is another thing. And I will tell you, people don't move because someone got elected. They move because they want something different. They want an aspirational lifestyle that they feel like they don't have. And what we've seen over the past 10 years is we've taken a lot of Californians, a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of people from DC, from these metropolitan cities, who maybe they've got a crime problem. Their schools aren't good. The policies over time build on each other, and they've got, everything in Walgreens behind a lock and key. And so if you want to buy a pair of nail clippers, you have to press the button and somebody has to come over and open the thing. And because you can shoplift up to $1,000 there and not be punished. So I feel like people are really moving because they see a way of life that's better than what they have, or they want a slower pace. And so we're still seeing the entire Southeast. We're still seeing migration patterns happen here. I think the last number that I saw for Raleigh was 56 people a day are moving into the Triangle. And that's a healthy number. And so I feel like that's going to continue to happen. And what we're hearing is the people in New York who love New York are going to stay in New York, and the wealthy have other houses in other places, and they're going to divide their time. And people who are true to New York City usually always keep a place there, right? Maybe they're not living in an 5-bedroom, penthouse or brownstone. Maybe they're just buying a city flat and a pad and having a place to go, and they're coming to North Carolina, they're coming to Florida, they're going to Texas, they're going to I think it's Wyoming that doesn't have a state tax, and they're really trying to get away from 13%, New York income tax. So I feel like there's a lot more factors that play into just one guy getting elected, who everybody who's reasonable knows that he cannot keep those promises.
I think, Gretchen, you benefit. You're in your entire career, if it's been in North Carolina, you've benefited from exactly what you just said. Like like we've even given advice before to people. Like they try so hard to kind of game the tax system that it's like, do you realize how much you're paying to maintain 2 homes at this place? Like if you don't want to live in Florida, don't live in Florida. Visit it for a couple months and just live in Colorado. Like the taxes aren't that bad, so to speak. And the Carolinas, I mean, that's the whole halfback thing, right? All the people that moved to Florida and moved back to North Carolina. I grew up in Connecticut and I live in Florida now, but I lived in Raleigh for a while, and I love living there because it actually reminded me of, I had kind of a Northeastern look and feel with better weather, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But even to your point, it can't be validated more than the people that move in retirement further south and come back to North Carolina, regardless of state taxes, because it's not that bad. It's never as bad as like, and we're the kind of people, by the way, we wish that people would ask us for advice before they do all that stuff. It's like, pick a place you want to live culturally and comfort, and I bet you can do it, right? And just not get too caught up in those things. But I've always heard that North Carolina has grown, not just from, they're growing business-wise in Raleigh, certainly with businesses, and North Carolina's done a great job, and so is South Carolina, of attracting people there. But if I'm not mistaken, they get a lot of retirees that's their second retirement location. They tried someplace further south and they come back to the Carolinas and go, I'm good. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're absolutely right. You said the term right. We call them halfbacks. They come halfway back. And what we also have here in Raleigh is an education system, particularly in the Triangle, that from the top down fuels education here. From the 3 top R1 schools, NC State, Duke, UNC, to 12 other colleges and universities, plus a Wake Tech community college system that serves 88,000 students. So when you start thinking about having 3 research institutions like that in your market, all of that juice funnels all the way down to the child care, to the pre-K, to the kindergarten, to the lower schools, the middle schools, the high schools, and you have educational opportunities that you can't recreate in other places. There are very few markets that you can go into that have three top tier university systems like that. And the reward for that is we have the most PhDs per capita of any area in the United States. I don't know if it's the stat. I think it's Raleigh. It's the Triangle area.
Yeah.
So, you're that funnel that fuels so much of our economy, because people move here and they love it. They go to school here and they don't leave. And so their parents follow them. Like, if my kids start having grandkids, I'm going wherever they go. I love Raleigh, but I'm going to be around my family. And so, the kids get here and they love it. And their parents, once they retire, end up moving down, and their sisters and brothers move down. I can't tell you how many people that I have worked with over the 25 years that I've been in the business. I'm 50 years old now. And that I've helped 3 or 4 or 5 members of their family. And it's so rewarding, because it just, it really speaks to everything that North Carolina, everything that Raleigh has to offer. It is culturally sound. Southern hospitality is a real thing. People still want to live here. And even though we're not as affordable as we used to be, which is my biggest concern about our market, Raleigh has always benefited because we've been such an affordable city with all of the things that we've mentioned previously, right? Now, we're starting to inch up in housing prices. It's the cost of living is starting to go up. And so, we are hearing people that are saying, okay, we're marking Raleigh off the list and we're looking at Kansas City. And I don't know that that's going to be a real thing, because I think the migration shift is being on a major artery, being near a coast, like, being able to get to New York or get to Florida or go on 40 and get to Atlanta. I think all of those things play a huge role in what is fueling our market.
Well, I've got 4 grandchildren. It's the only thing I budget for to go see them. So you're right. Like, a couple of them live here, but some live in Boston, some of them in Connecticut. And I'm like, okay, that's the thing I'm focused on.
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that mine stay here for these university systems that they really like. And I'm hoping I get my one back from California.
There you go. There you go. Any other questions today, Matt?
No, I think this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your time, Gretchen. Like this, we got way more information than I expected. I came in thinking mortgage rates and the 50-year and all that stuff. This has been super valuable, talking about consumer sentiment and the things that really drive people in their decision-making with home buying.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's what I was going to say is thank you. We appreciate it. We got a lot of your time today, and we know it's valuable because you're out there selling a lot of homes in Raleigh. So we wish you the best of luck, and anything that we can do to support that, we certainly want to do as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thanks.